everybody, and welcome to another episode of Guys Talking Sports. It's your boy A, or Ace, or Big Cat, whatever you want to call me. It's all good. Just welcome y'all to our new episode. Yo E, yo Al, what's good?
Living in life, man. Everything is all good. A rainy Friday, but heads up. Go Ruckers.
Really now. Okay. No, but everything is good. I'm ready to get started. Talk about what's going on in the world of sports today. So I'm ready to get into it. Let's go.
All right. So, with that being said, we are here. It's Super Bowl lead up, I guess you would want to call it. The Pro Bowl activities are going on this week. I don't know about y'all. I haven't paid any attention to any of that Pro Bowl crap. Because I don't know, there's just nothing. I could care less about the flag football or any of the stuff that kind of leads up to it. So
fair point.
If they're going to do it, if they're going to bring back a game, they might as well bring it back where it means something. Which I think they should do it. I don't know. Maybe they should just cancel it because they're all afraid of injury. So I don't know. But what do you guys' take on this whole lead up into the Super Bowl and this whole Pro Bowl week? I think it's like a 3 or 4 day event now, leading up to flag football on Sunday.
I was talking to one of my coworkers, and I wouldn't mind being down in the Big Easy for this Super Bowl. I'm pretty sure it'll be a lot of fun, a lot of drinks, a lot of good food. The Pro Bowl is the Pro Bowl, but the Pro Bowl is where at? It's in
Florida,
is it
I believe.
is
Where
so
in Florida? I don't know, but I could look that up.
Well, I think I liked the Pro Bowl when it was back in Hawaii. I think Hawaii does miss the revenue, but I think it's you know I actually like some of the skill stuff. The Pro Bowl game had been just trash. I mean, it was pretty much flag football, so they turned it into flag football. So it is what it is.
Right.
But some of the other stuff, I mean, this the skill stuff, and I want them to bring back some of the old school All Star. I mean, All Pro Bowl weekend stuff, where like they did like the bench pressing and the running and all the other good stuff. They need to bring back that kind of stuff. I mean, Cats is making too much money and got too much on the line to go full tilt for a Pro Bowl game. So make it as fun as you can possibly can.
Agreed. And just to follow up, the Pro Bowl is in Orlando. But I agree with you. I did like it better when it was in Hawaii. It made it more like, it was worth their while to want to sit there and take the family and select friends to Hawaii for a nice vacation. But, hey, it is what it is.
No, you're right. It is what it is. What's crazy and interesting about it, the Pro Bowl, is the fact that at the end of the day, with all the other sports that is out there, whether it's MLB, NHL, NBA, it's weird the fact that they play their quote unquote Pro Bowl or All-Star games mid-season, while the NFL's Pro Bowl is done like a week before the Super Bowl. Not knocking it. I'm just saying that I find that intriguing. And I think that's something I haven't really recognized until just now. So with that being said, I get it. It's the Pro Bowl. You're going to have different activities. You're trying to get fans engaged. To be honest, I think that they should work a little bit more on more fan engagement in the Pro Bowl. In some way to keep, because I don't think a lot of people is going to watch the Pro Bowl. I just don't see it, the numbers being at this point where it's intriguing enough for people to watch the Pro Bowl. But you'll see people watch the MLB All-Star game. Some will even watch the true diehard fans who watch the NHL All-Star game and the NBA All-Star game. I think that the NFL may have to do something just a little bit different to keep the fans engaged and to get them a reason to watch the Pro Bowl. Because outside of that, it's just really just another event from the NFL before the Super Bowl. And I think that a lot of people would rather just wait and watch and not watch the Super Bowl and just focus more on the Super Bowl, because That's the big event. That's the big honcho. To be honest, the question I have is, would they ever consider moving the Pro Bowl at a different date?
I would like to see it in a different date. I would love to see it mid-season, but I don't think they would because football is a very contact sport, very physical. So you barely have players want to play it at the end of the season, let alone want to play it mid-season. So I
But
would
do they
love
really play? Do they really play like seriously in the Pro Bowl?
if you
Like it's
if
no
you
different.
if you
Okay.
if you limit it because I have different ideas on NFL and NBA. If you limit the NFL to flag football mid-season, then you might be able to get away with that because there's no contact. You can
Mhm.
still do all the skill challenges. You can still do all the stuff if you do it mid-season. I mean, if you do 18 games, then let's say you make it 18 weeks, but you take one of those 18 weeks and you know, make it the All-Star weekend, or probably you may have to do 2 weeks to make it worthwhile for NFL to say, okay, we're going to do half the season, 2 weeks off, one week off, or 1 week for the Pro Bowl or the flag football and all the other stuff, another week for rest, and then come back to the NFL season. I think they should consider that, but I don't know. It's mid-season, so but I think everybody gets a bye. You can get rid of one of the bye weeks because if you do a mid-season all-star, then you can do 2 weeks where you can do 1 week would be the all pro or flag football, whatever you want to do. Another week would be a bye for everybody. And then you
I,
run the rest of the season. I don't
I
know if they
think
will go for that, but I think because no one wants to play it now because at the end of the season, no one wants to risk injury. No one wants to risk injury in the mid-season, but maybe you can find a medium like that. I don't know.
I think the only way they'd be willing to host a Pro Bowl or All Star mid season is they would sit there and have to take the last 9 games of the previous season plus the first 4 games, the first 9 games of the current season, and try to say who's the All Star between those those segments of football to determine who the All Stars would be. And I think they would have to really weigh the the last 9 games of the previous season heavier than they would the first 9 games of the regular season, or they would at least not have to count the first. Because if you're talking about going to 18 games, now you're talking about eliminating 2 preseason games, so you may need to not count the first 2 or 3 games of the regular season in order to validate who's having a better season, because those would be tune-up games, or however they however they determine how the players are getting to gameplay readiness to be ready for the regular season. So I don't think it's not doable. I just think that they would have to be creative about how they would choose who the Pro Bowl, who the players are that would make the Pro Bowl.
I hear you. And that means maybe starting the season slightly earlier instead of starting the season second week of September. You may have to start the season last week of August. Now you're stepping on college football, but
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 but but the whole, not to cut you off, but that might be good. That it might push the college football season back, because then now the college football national championship wouldn't be so late in January. It might align to get back closer to the New Year's Day first week of January to get everything kind of taken care of, I think.
well, that's a good point. I mean, you have every other major sports league does their stuff mid-season except NFL. And I think it's doable, but I think in order for it to be doable, you have to. it have to be 2 weeks. 1 week for the all pro and 1 week, but you have to do the all pro basically like how everybody else does it. Leave it up to the fans.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Agreed.
That's one of the reasons why I believe that if those changes are made, then I think overall that it will benefit not just the NFL as a whole, but sports as a whole, especially people that are watching during the college football NFL season.
And I truly believe, in my own personal opinion, that college football is more exciting and more probably the more of the preference, in my opinion, than the NFL. You know, especially now with the whole new playoff format. Um, if they were able to push it back and kind of work it in where all the not the Pro Bowls, but all of the bowl games that they have going on, and they can get it back to where the championship game was like after the first weekend of New Year. I think in cooperation with the NFL, that could be something that could really be beneficial for both leagues. Or well, college and NFL, I should say.
Right?
Definitely not two leagues, because we all know the amateurism versus pro.
I don't know. I may watch amateurism.
But I mean, the way they're giving out money now, I think they might be leaning more towards semi-pro for college and
True.
you
True.
know, so
Might as well call at this point. You might as well call college, football, basketball, the minors. For all intents and purposes, that's really what it is.
Pretty much.
I agree. I agree with you. I agree. So, with that being said, now that we understand that we don't really care about so much about the Pro Bowl at the end of the season, and it's a little
Yeah.
buffer for the Super Bowl just to give eyeballs to the NFL, which we really don't care about. We have our Super Bowl set, whichever Super Bowl this is, 58, 59, something like that. I don't even know.
Almost 60, I think, somewhere around there.
Yeah. We got a rematch between the Chiefs and the Eagles.
Right.
I'm not saying I'm disappointed in the matchup. I'm just saying that I hope, I don't know. I'm torn because if I want to sit there and say, it's always great to see a person of color win a Super Bowl, especially at the quarterback position. That's always great. But in this particular situation, it's either or. So if I wanted to be like, okay, person of color at the coach position, now that has a little bit of intrigue, but I think we've had that before, and I want to say we've had that before.
Not since Tony Dungy, right?
No, Mike Tomlin.
Oh, Mike Tomlin. You're
Mike
right.
Tomlin, but I forget who the other coach was. If it was a scenario where it's two coaches of color coaching in the Super Bowl, don't quote me. I can't remember, but either way, I think it'll be an entertaining game. I think if the Eagles sit there and stay true to their game plan and just continue doing what they do, they stand a very good chance to win that championship. If they try to get cute, and because they're playing the Chiefs and they want to do all this extra crazy stuff, I think that might become their demise. But when you have a Patrick Mahomes at quarterback and the things that he could do and the things that he's done over the course of years, because I think I was just listening on the radio where Philly in the first matchup, Jalen Hurts and Philly was crushing the Chiefs, and all of a sudden the Chiefs just kind of came back. So I hope that they learn from that experience and kind of, do what they need to do to kind of close the book when if they're up and they know how to play differently to close the book in the whole situation. But I, I really have no dog in this fight. it's this it's this rehashing of old things, and I'm just really there for the commercials and
The
the good grub.
commercial.
And the bean dip.
Well, no. That seems to be very have a level of violence. I don't know if I want to sit there and tackle having to know I got to go to work the next day. But
Well,
what do you guys take?
it's a rematch. I have a feeling that the game will probably. I don't want to make any predictions. We can do that next week. But
Mhm.
I think at the end of the day, I think the teams who I thought would be there are there. I thought Detroit was actually going to make it, but Detroit had so many injuries, so many people out in IR. I mean, the attrition that they had. I mean, it was only eventually it's going to catch up to them. I just knew it was going to catch up to them. I wasn't sure whether it's going to catch up to them before the Super Bowl or they made it to the Super Bowl, and it caught up to them. Against the Redskins. I mean, the Redskins. I mean, dropped so many points on them. It was ridiculous. I mean, most of the injuries on the defensive side. I mean, the offensive, was going, point for point, but the defense couldn't stop anybody. Now, the Redskins defense couldn't stop anybody really much either. So,
Yeah,
that's, par for the course. But the Eagles made it. The Chiefs, just when you think, just when you want to bet against them, they find a way. It's almost like, how people talk about it. It's like Brady with the Patriots. It's like when you think they shouldn't make it and win,
they
they
find a way.
make it and they find a way. It's like,
Mhm.
I don't know, the guys just come over to the football field and just make that team, which should be superior to them. Not, not, not that. I mean, I'm a Giants fan, and the Giants beat the Patriots two times, and both times they shouldn't have beat them, and yet they beat them.
I think it was that Manning kryptonite. He got one Manning, but he couldn't get the other.
No, no, the younger brother got him twice. I mean,
Hmm.
even the Eagles, I swore up and down the Eagles could not beat them with Nick Foles, and they came out and they lit them up. And for this one, it's like I don't want to bet against Patrick Mahomes. I mean, whew, I will look for. They're going to be focusing on Travis Kelsey, Kareem Hunt, and Isaiah Pacheco and Xavier Worthy. Expect for a Hollywood Brown and Hopkins to have a big game because I think Andy Reid is going to call some stuff for them because no one's really looking for them, and he always finds how to get those. Last Super Bowl,
Right.
he did that. He had rookies that you didn't think was going to do anything catching TD passes, and so it was like they couldn't. They just the 49ers couldn't stop it, and I have a feeling that Andy Reid will find a way to get some players in position that the Eagles aren't prepared for, and they can't stop them.
To be honest, I have no dog in this fight at this stage. I really don't care at this stage. And it's not a knock against, you know, it's basically just more so the fact that at the end of the day, I'm not intrigued. I would have been more intrigued if it was Washington. I would have been more intrigued if it was Buffalo. So at the end of the day, it's like, and I get it. It's not a knock against the teams. It's not a knock against Kansas City or Philly. I'm always just that person that's going to root for the underdog, and I would rather see an underdog in a championship than the two teams that are supposed to be in a championship. So I really am not going to be. I'm not intrigued at it at all. To be honest, I'm not even intrigued at the halftime show or
Ah,
I'm just more about the commercials at this stage.
I'm with you on that. I'm not. I like Kendrick Lamar, but I'm hesitant on the halftime show of Kendrick
Yeah,
Lamar.
I agree. I agree. It's not a knock against Kendrick Lamar. And
No, no, not at all.
it's not a knock against it at all. It's just that halftime shows. It's only certain halftime shows where you're like, okay, yeah, I'm fully invested in this halftime show. It was only a couple of halftime shows where there's like probably wasn't a great performance by that I have to admit to. I'm not really intrigued by it. I'm not, to be honest, I'm not really intrigued about the whole overall experience at this point. I'll probably just look at the commercials. Um, it's not giving me that I need to watch it type of thing. Like there was last year's Super Bowl was like I need to watch it because I'm intrigued. Only thing I can say is that if Kansas City wins, of course they'll three-peat, which um, I would rather see Philly stop them and show a little bit more competition. Yes, but it's difficult when you have so many different weapons that Patrick Mahomes has, and I ain't gonna front. The Bills, I was solely disappointed in them because I would have thought by going up against them as many times as they had, I really believe that this would have been the year to do it. And they really just fell to the same track, which made it just even more of a disappointment for me. Washington, I was rooting for them against the Eagles, and I wasn't really expecting much, but I was rooting for them. But Buffalo, I was really disappointed in how they either executed or tried to execute and didn't succeed in execution. So, with that being said, Cleveland and Philly, may the best team win. I'm not rooting for anyone at this particular point. I don't even, to be honest, and I say this with the utmost respect, I know Saquon Barkley is going to push to do his thing because he's definitely in a happier position. But at the end of the day, I can't root for him either. Really can't. So, again, it's just when you do, and he talented player, but I have to say this, and I know as a Giants fan, I can see where I'm just gonna point blank say it. For Philly fans, you got exactly what you needed to get you to this spot. Now, my thing is that if you go into the Super Bowl and you don't utilize Saquon Barkley effectively, all this was for naught. So to the Philadelphia Eagles, you really need to make sure that you utilize Saquon. He is the hungriest person out of all the members of your team because he is trying to push to win a chip, and he needs that. And he's in a position where he can do it. So utilize him the right way. Don't go to start throwing the ball, Jalen Hurts, like 70% of the time when you have Saquon Barkley there that can be your workhorse. Give him the ball, give him the opportunity to show what he can do in the Super Bowl. And I'm only going to say that once. So when you get to that game and you start trying to rely on Jalen Hurts more than you rely on Saquon Barkley, you're going to lose this game with the quickness. And a lot of fans is going to be disappointed in how you execute. So execute the right way, make it a close game. Don't be like Buffalo and be disappointed. I need you to be on your A game. This is your opportunity to shine. Like Kansas City don't really have nothing to lose. Really don't. Really don't. Philly, this is all on you. So make sure you show and prove. That's all I have to say about that.
I think Jalen Hurts. I think he understands the assignment because he was there and he had the opportunity to, I guess, slay the dragon the first time around, and the defense. I don't know if the defense let him down, or I believe you know what? I believe it was a costly fumble on the Eagles' offensive side that kind of was the reason why they didn't pull that game out. So I think he may have something to prove along with Saquon.
To be honest, the offense is not what I'm concerned about.
But yeah, but is either defense going to be the reason why they win this game? That's the bigger question. Philly has come out and proved that if they want to, they can go out there and just do whatever the heck they want. I never thought that Philly would have been that team to go out there and just put on an offensive display versus Detroit kind of laying an egg versus the Redskins. So yeah, I don't know if I'm sorry, the Commanders. I don't know if the Commanders and the NFC Championship was just too big. You know, the moment was too big for them. Whereas Philly just took a common sweep to Saquon to the left, and he just takes it to the house. I don't understand. Everything. The gods was just shining down on Philly that day, and they went out there and just did whatever they chose to do on offense, and it worked. And no matter what the Redskins, excuse me, no matter what the Commanders did, they couldn't stop it. But kind of piggybacking, the whole thing, or at least going back to the whole thing we were saying with Buffalo's quarterback versus Mahomes. Uh, I want to kind of say that's Lamar's kind of nightmare where he has Buffalo's quarterback and the Chiefs quarterback where he has problems with both of them.
Mm-hmm.
And he can't seem to get over the hump with either one. Kind of reminds me of when Jordan was dominating the NBA, where you had Ewing and you had all these other great players that could never seem to get past the hump because Jordan was always in the way. And I'm looking at Mahomes as being like the Jordan-esque of the NFL right now, where you got these other titans, these other great players that just can't seem to beat him. And I don't know if they ever will, but we're still going to consider them legends and we're still going to consider them great. But they will always have that one thing that they couldn't get past Mahomes.
True.
And the crazy thing about it is, I guarantee the one season where, and I'm not saying Kansas City's going to win, but the one season where Kansas City might get ousted in the first round by for whatever reason, and is now Lamar or well, I can't think of old boy's name, Josh Allen's
Josh Allen.
opportunity to sit there and make their mark, that somebody else is going to take the throne, like a CJ Stroud, or somebody else is going to come up and win the chip that year, just because they can't seem to get out of each other's way. So they just might be destined to be that great, but they just can't slay that dragon as Mahomes. And then the off seasons where none of the three make it, somebody else is going to win the chip that year.
Well, yeah, I guess it bends back to how you're referring to the old AFC days when you had Brady, and then you had Roethlisberger, you had Manning, and other Philip Rivers, all
Yeah.
banging heads, but nobody can break through until you had a Roethlisberger one year that broke through, and then a Manning that broke through, and then a Manning had to go to a different team and break through again. So it was like there was that 10-year gap where Brady didn't win a championship, so it was like open lanes, but
Yeah.
other people won it. But
But it wasn't. But it
I feel
wasn't
you on that.
the juggernauts that we thought we would win.
Yeah.
In other words, you know what I'm saying? It was the
Yeah.
other people that, we never thought that Roethlisberger was going to win this chip, especially in his second season. You
True.
know, so it'll be interesting to see how Lamar kind of bounces back. It'll be interesting to see what the Bills going to do as far as their draft, because obviously their offense was pretty darn good considering they didn't have a true number one. So are they going to go out there and grab a number one, or they're hoping that Keon Coleman will step up and be that number one next year? And they got what's old boy that came from Cleveland? Uh, yeah,
Amari Cooper.
that be their 1-2 punch going into next season, along with Knox at tight end.
I mean, I think Kansas City Chiefs had proven that you don't necessarily need to have that legitimate number one receiver to win. Um, because outside of Tyreek Hill, the one year that they won, they haven't had what you would consider a number one receiver. Period. I mean, they had Travis Kelsey, they had running backs. They've been able to, oddly enough, they've been able to win games in a manner that NFC teams have won in the past, the way that the Dallas Cowboys won, the way that the Giants won, the way that the Redskins won, you know, running the football and then they conduct passes. They had the one year where they had Tyreek Hill and you couldn't stop them, but after that, it's been basically almost an NFC format. So you the same the way that they play football is the same. I think to your point, Ace, I think if the defense of the Kansas City Chiefs steps up and plays an exceptional game, they win. If they play a lackluster game, they're going to lose because the Eagles have been running Saquon Barkley almost the same that the Giants have, except that they don't utilize Saquon Barkley almost like the Giants have. And the one thing that they haven't used at all, which I'm surprised and I hope they don't use, is that just as good as he's a runner,
Pass catching.
he's as good as
Yep.
a pass catcher. And they have not utilized that at all. And they've been running them through the blocks because they have a great offensive line. But the one thing about Saquon Barkley that I've been watching is if you stack that box, he can't run.
So it makes you wonder if they've been keeping that up their sleeve all season to unleash it in this situation to kind of catch the Chiefs off guard. But if they're smart, they know that he's capable of that. It's just a matter, can they defend it when it does kind of pop up?
And that's a problem because on the outside, I think that's where they're lacking. But if you keep running them on the inside, I think Spags is eventually he's going to stack that box
Mhm.
and blitz. So you and so the one thing that Barkley has done all year, he's took the ball out of Hurts' hands.
Yeah,
So Hurts is not the liability that he has been the last
exactly.
couple of years. He wasn't a liability that he was in the
Mhm.
last Super Bowl. So Barkley takes the ball out of his hands. You stack the box. Now you put the ball in Hurts' hands, and you're going to be like, look, Barkley ain't going to beat me. Hurts, you got to beat me. And if we're going to lose by Hurts throwing the ball, that's what I think they're going to do. Make Hurts beat them and not Barkley beat them. Because Barkley is doing the same thing he's doing with the Giants. 5 yards here, 2 yards there, 3 yards here, boom, 50. He's doing nothing different than what he's doing with the Giants.
Hmm. Except for him getting 70 on the first touch last game.
That was
That,
ridiculous.
that,
Redskins defense wasn't all that great to begin with, so but that was ridiculous. 66 yards on the first play from scrimmage and scores a touchdown. But that's the Barkley that the Giants had, and that's what he was. He wasn't a Derrick Henry
Right. Right.
back. He's a home run hitter where he'll get 5-2, 5-2, and then boom, 40, boom, 60, boom, 70. But he can't do that on a consistent basis. And if you stack the box, he can't do that because then he can't get out. And the Giants would at least use him in screens and passes and break him out wide. The Eagles don't do that. Well, they got AJ Brown, you got Devontae Smith, so you don't need to do that. But I think they're running him a lot, but I think he's more McCaffrey than he is what he's doing right now. And if they would use him more in the McCaffrey style, the Chiefs couldn't do anything with him because he can run and catch and come out and sweeps and screens. Chiefs couldn't do anything with that, and he's capable, but the Eagles just want to run him.
I guess they don't see a need to really put him in the passing offense
no.
when you got two capable, you got a solid number one and a solid number two at wide receiver that both short-handed make those plays.
I
And
get
they
And
it.
they
also
got
got,
and they got an above average tight end.
yeah, I was about to say.
I get it. I get it.
So they're like, all right, Saquon, we don't necessarily need that, but it wouldn't shock me, like you said, if they've been hiding that, practicing it, but haven't pulled it out because they didn't want to show it, and they plan to show it in the Super Bowl.
If they do that, whew, they'll have the Chiefs on their heels big time.
Because it makes me wonder. I don't follow the Eagles like that, but I mean, have they even used Saquon in screens or anything like that? Like this to keep defenses honest, or they put in the more receiving back, I guess, in Philly's eyes to come in and run those plays.
I've watched a couple of very little. They've been running him, but they got that great offensive line, so he barely gets touched. Once he gets past, the
Mhm.
offensive line, he gets in the secondary, no one touches him. So he's like, off to the races. So they haven't had to do that yet. They might, like you said, they may have that in the playbook and they might have to break it out, but no one has made them have to do that because no one has forced them to stack the box and not let Saquon get off.
Makes sense.
Yeah, and their offensive line is not filtered yet.
Yeah, no, not at
No,
all.
no.
Not at all.
That's one of the reasons why I say the defense is going to be telling. At this point, I think Eagles defense, as long as they can contain, I'm not saying that they need to stop, but as long as they can contain Casey's offense, it'll put them in a good position.
Well, I said it before and I said it again. I have no dog in this fight. I really. Oh,
I do.
Well, yes, you want the Chiefs to win, I guess, just because of you don't want to hear the crap when you go to work on that Monday, which I get.
Yeah, I heard it all week this week, so I don't want to hear it. After that.
That's
It's
why.
always good.
No, I was just saying that's why you need to be a West Coast team because nobody over here is talking about West Coast teams. So I don't hear all that chirping unless I'm talking to those who I know and they know.
And I rooted for the 49ers, and they disappointed
See,
me.
that's your problem. I'm a Niners fan, and I don't necessarily root for them because I don't want to be disappointed.
Fair point. Yeah, that is true. Because even when they was winning, you was like, not falling for it.
And was I correct?
Mm.
Kaepernick had me in a chokehold. I just knew it, and then from that point on, I was like, let me just fall back a little bit. Oh man! All right, so we're not going to sit here and choose any predictions, but I don't think we had an opportunity because I know we didn't chat last week, but just briefly, did we talk about the NCAA championship game? Did we have an opportunity to discuss that? I know we talked about what was leading into it.
Oh, college football? No, we did not.
All right, so just briefly, watching the game, and that was Notre Dame versus
Ohio State.
Ohio State. What were you guys' thought? Was it the game that you thought it was going to be, or we all just recognized that Ohio State was just a juggernaut and they were destined to win it all? I guess question.
Nah, it's not. It's not. I mean, real talk, like it's like what you just said. Ohio State proved to be a little bit too much, or to be honest, it's more so. I don't think Notre Dame was ready for this type of atmosphere. I think it was just more so of, the standard versus someone that's getting the opportunity. And at the end of the day, I mean, hats off to Ohio State. Even though I have to admit I was rooting for Notre Dame. I think it's a growing lesson for Notre Dame. Now, whether or not the people will stay there or transfer, or whether the case may be, that's another story. But at the end of the day, it also makes me realize that Notre Dame needs to solidify themselves a little bit more. And maybe it's time for them to think about joining a conference. Because I really believe that some of the things, when you get to this point, it's because of who you play. I understand that. But I think that solidifying yourself with an actual conference will help get you to prepare for teams like Ohio State on a regular basis instead of always in a big light, or in some type of bowl game. So I think having to participate in one of the stronger conferences, I think that will help benefit them more so than anything.
I feel you. And there's been an article that came out recently where Notre Dame is working with the ACC with trying to build an alliance where they're playing Clemson, Florida State, and Miami more regularly. And I think every year they play 2 out of the 3 teams every year, along with, I guess, Notre Dame being able to keep their common rivalries, I guess, with USC and Army, or is it Navy? No, I think it's Army. One of the naval academies.
Mm-hmm.
So they can try to play a tougher schedule. But I agree with you. You know, unfortunately, with Notre Dame having their own network alliance with NBC, they're not going to give up that revenue, knowing that NBC is going to sit there and pay them handsomely. Just due because obviously it's Notre Dame.
Yeah.
Obviously, it's a allure for all the Catholics in America to know that that's their national team that they can sit there and watch, and it be readily available to them on network TV, maybe occasionally on a streaming app, but I doubt there would ever be where they're not on linear TV and readily available for everybody in the country to watch. But I agree with you. I think their lack of tougher opponents hurt them. But then this goes to show that everybody who thought that the SEC was supreme as far as talent and all this type of stuff, yeah, the SEC has some really good teams, a few, Georgia, Alabama, one A, one B, respectively. And then of course they have teams that just by name recognition, blue blood, however you want to, Tennessee's, the Floridas, the Ole Miss, whatever. They aren't the teams that they were in the '90s. So even though they might be on their way back, or they have not been consistent or as consistent as say Alabama the past 15 years, and then Georgia probably the last 7 to 10. You know, so but the Big Ten has been consistent. They always say Ohio State, Michigan, Penn State. But that's that smash mouth, running, grinding type of football that's always there for them. And I think that's what kind of put the Big Ten as being the better conference, at least the past 2 seasons.
Yeah.
Because they've been getting the talent, they've been knocking heads against one another, and they've been playing one another.
True.
And if you're going to talk to Ohio States, the Michigans, the Penn State, and the Big Ten, they always play each other. Ohio State, Michigan, definitely. Penn State will sit there playing Ohio State, they'll play Michigan, but they're going to play one of the two. But you may not get that in the SEC. Alabama might wreck shop, but they will never. There's times where they might not play at Georgia. So it's what they talk about. Iron sharpens iron. You don't know how well you are until you play the best in your conference, and the SEC doesn't necessarily always play their best team unless they're in the championship game. And even then, it doesn't necessarily mean the second best SEC team is in the championship game versus the East versus the West, or however it comes out. So as far as Notre Dame joining, well, not definitely not joining, but as far as Notre Dame playing the Florida States, the Miamis, the Clemsons, personally, I think Notre Dame will probably beat them. Because I think on a talent-wise, I think Notre Dame, in my opinion, gets better talent than a Florida State or a Clemson or a Miami at this particular junction of where we are. But Notre Dame is going to do what they have to do, because it's going to get to a point where they might continue to get to the playoffs, so they might continue to get to this point, but they're going to continue to get smacked around just because they don't play the best every season. So they may opt to join a conference at some point, but I don't think they'll join a conference unless that conference agrees to let them keep their total revenue from NBC. But then Notre Dame is probably going to try to be greedy and be like, well, we still want part of the whatever conference revenue that is, and then we still want our tier 2, tier 3 revenue as well. So, nobody's ever going to be happy when it comes down to the whole situation when it comes to Notre Dame.
Definitely.
It's going to be money in that case, and I think that you heard the comments of the the Penn State coach when he said that Notre Dame getting in there and they're not even in a conference, being able to pocket all of the money that they got for being, coming in second place. Where if Penn State got in there and lost, they would have had to share the wealth with the
Mhm.
Big Ten. Is not fair. Big Ten doesn't think it's fair. SEC doesn't think it is fair. ACC doesn't think it's fair. Big 12 doesn't think it's. Everybody doesn't think it's fair. So you're going to see over the next few years the Big Ten getting pushed out farther. From, I guess, not the Big Four, but they're going to get pushed out a little bit farther because their strength of schedule is going to get peanut. It's going to hurt them, which is why now they're more willing to entertain other teams because they know that the playoff committee is going to start to ding them more on their strength of schedule. You can't tell me that the only top teams that you might play would be USC and somebody else, but you're playing a Navy and playing all those other teams that aren't real. Well, Navy was actually good this year, but historically Navy has not been
Right.
that good. So their strength of schedule over the years has only really had 2 to 3 good teams, where the SEC and the Big Ten and Big 12 have had damn near, half their games good teams.
Yeah.
That's going to hurt them. They got lucky this year because they weren't being penalized for their schedule because it's the
Mhm.
first year. But trust me, what the coach said from Penn State said about Penn State. I mean, from about Notre Dame is he's not the only one.
He's just the only one being vocal about it. Mhm.
Exactly.
And trust me, behind the closed doors, they're going to penalize Notre Dame because it's like, hey, yeah, no, you're independent, but you don't play a whole lot of big teams where everybody else plays these, SEC, Big 10, Big 12. Yeah, the line's going to get cut. So you're going to see them not be in the top. You're going to see them probably get 11 or 12 or the 10th seed, you know, where their path to get to the championship game is going to be harder. But I think eventually Notre Dame is going to have to come off their high horse to a certain degree and either go to the ACC or find a way to get out of the ACC and go to the Big Ten. It's going to be one of the two. Independent will stay for the next couple of years, but I think within the next 5 to 10 years, I think Notre Dame is going to find themselves in a conference.
If they were smart,
Yeah.
if they were smart, they would go to the Big 12 because they would be the top
Ooh,
dog in that conference, and they would pretty much know just because of name they're going to get their recruits, and they should be able to rough shop in that conference. They should, because I'm not saying they couldn't do the same thing in the Big Ten
they don't want no parts of the Big
because
Ten,
they
really.
know they're not going to be able to compete. They might be able to compete with the SEC to an extent, and they probably could dominate the ACC, maybe, but they could definitely be the top dog in the Big 12 because they would be that lone name recognition that that blue blood that the Big 12 kind of misses now that Texas and Oklahoma is left. But they're never going to give up that NBC money. They're not doing that.
No, and they just re-upped a year or two ago, so they locked in for the next 10 years. They ain't giving nothing up. They might have to work out an
Mhm.
agreement with someone, but they ain't
Nope.
giving up that money.
And
My
especially now, like you said, I think you said this, Al, where they got the full share of the playoff coming in second, the 20 million,
Yeah, they ain't got to break nobody. They ain't got to break
and that's
nobody
their
off.
NIL money right there, just by making it to the championship game. They don't have to sit there and ask nobody for nothing. That's our money for the year, and we could pay any player that we want to come in.
which makes me wonder why is other conferences worried about what Notre Dame is doing? Like if that was the case and they came in second, they keep the money. That's them. That's the program. That's how it is. That's how it's constructed. They can't be salty about a team that basically did what they need to do to keep the money just for playing in the championship game.
But
Like
but that's the reason why they're hating. In other words, like he
I,
said,
I know I get what you're saying.
yeah,
No, I get what you're saying. I agree with it, but don't hate. Just stop them. That's where I'm coming from.
Yeah.
Like,
Oh,
don't be in a position to hate. You can't hate on somebody that did what they're doing, what they only did. They beat your teams, they beat their conference, and got to the point where they're in a championship game. Don't be hating on them for doing what they were supposed to do. If you're going to hate on them, you do it by beating them. That's what you're supposed to do. You can't talk about what Notre Dame is doing. They did what they were supposed to do. So that's one of the things, the aspects that I can't stand. You can't hate on somebody. You can't talk about another team if your conference played them and y'all lost to them. There's no reason for you to say anything. Basically, you just do what you need to do, or whoever the team that needs to do it just needs to beat them so that there's no argument. There's no reason for them to get money for playing second in a championship game. You just do what you're supposed to do and beat them. Don't just hate on them. That's not a good move. It's not a good look.
I agree with you, but let's just say let's play devil's advocate here.
Mm-hmm.
Say, based on what you were saying, that Notre Dame comes in an 11 seed, they play the first round, they win.
Mm-hmm.
They, even though I guess they would collect a check for every round that they win.
Mm-hmm.
So even if they win the first round and that's $2 million, that's just $2 million to make their pocket bigger because they don't have to split that $2 million with the with whatever conference because they have no conference. So Notre Dame, even though they won 20 million, got $20 million to play in the championship game, I think they got $20+ million for every round that they won.
They basically bet it on themselves.
True. But it eased the fence. If you even put them at an 11, considering knowing the type of talent that they have, who's to sit there and say that they still wouldn't get to where they be? Just because they played Ball State and Indiana State, and then they threw an Army somewhere, an Air Force. Oh, we played Texas week 2. You know what I'm saying?
I do get the level of competition it is jarring. I understand that. Yes. But at the end of the day, this is why the playoffs is so important. Mm-hmm. So even if you're in a position where you're playing against Notre Dame, knowing that the level of competition that they played to get there should be more motivation for you to say, you know what, we played the toughest teams. We should be able to beat them. And you should be in a position where you have everything is favored in you to beat Notre Dame. So if Notre Dame comes around and just smacks you, it's not on. You can't complain about Notre Dame playing a soft level of competition. You just didn't do what you were supposed to do. And now you're hating. That's where I'm coming from.
Ace, I told you a couple of years ago when they had COVID and Notre Dame was asked out in the ACC, let them play. ACC should have been like, nope, unless you all in.
Yep. Yeah, but see, I guess the ACC's hand were tied because all of their Olympic sports are through the ACC. So I guess that's why they allowed them to kind of do that. But I agree with you. They would have just had to sit out and not play that year.
But on the flip side, when Notre Dame did play all the ACC teams, the games were much better. You actually want to focus in on watching Miami play Notre Dame, watching Clemson play Notre Dame, watching Wake Forest. It made the ACC better in that little pocket when they had to play all the teams. It made the games better, and they still came out on top. But they should have been like, either you're all in, or we're not letting you play. And what could they do? Now, NBC probably strong armed them and say, "Hey, look, you need
we'll
to
offer this money
let
for
them.
you to play.
You need to let them play." But the ACC should have stood. They ain't letting nobody break the contracts. You should have stood firm to NBC and be like, "Look, either they all in, or
I
they ain't
agree with
playing."
you. I totally agree.
And they let them slide. And now Notre Dame is like, why should we? We can do what we want.
We already proved that if you allow us to come in there, we're going to dominate you anyway. So no need to join you. So we're going to.
But they're not going to join the Big
Oh
Ten.
no, because they know they're going to get smacked. Oh yeah,
That's why.
because they get the Big Ten. Their schools get just as good or better talent than what's going to Notre Dame. So
They would be at best be probably third to fourth best team in
year
the
in,
Big Ten.
year out,
Mhm.
Yep.
and sometimes they might be fifth or sixth, depending if an Iowa comes up and has a sneaky good season like they typically do, or if North
Or
or
Illinois or
right
Indiana like they did
or
this past year.
Northwestern, they always kind of sneak in every once in a while. Yeah,
All
so
it takes is one.
crazy. RU might be on a come up. You never know.
They better. Rutgers.
All right, fellas. I know we almost coming down on time, so I don't know. I guess I've been avoiding this question because I just don't care about it at this point in the season. That thing called basketball. Boom. The NBA just don't mean nothing. Back in the day, the NBA during the regular season kind of was worthwhile watching, but I don't know. These guys are it's just kind of boring to me during the regular season because they don't seem like they bring their A game every day. So
That deserves a whole different podcast for that one because I got a lot of thoughts on the NBA.
okay. Well, with that being said, being that it's come to that point where it could be just basketball that we're going to talk about with a little bit of hockey and some other things that we might sprinkle in. But quickly, your thoughts on this whole Jimmy Butler situation and how he's kind of not caring that he's not getting any money or not caring that he's getting paid to purposely piss off the Heat organization so he doesn't get played. So he's forcing the organization's hand. What do you guys thought?
Don't you think we may have to hold off on this?
I mean, yeah, I guess we could because eventually we're going to find out.
Next week, the trade deadline. The Thursday is the trade deadline anyway. So, we could talk. I have a feeling that we're going to be talking about a lot of transactions that's going to happen. I think it would probably be best to hold off until next week.
All right, cool. And I don't even want to talk about the All-Star nominations because who cares?
I
have a suggestion for the NBA All-Star.
And when is that? That's what the weekend. What, Valentine's Day weekend?
I believe so. I believe so.
Yeah.
So, do we want to hold off on that conversation, or do you want to drop a little nugget as far as what's standing in your soapbox?
Let's hold off on that conversation because I have a lot to get into about that one. Because I have a suggestion to fix it because it's already a proven model to fix an All-Star game. But if you don't want to go that route, then they should go the other route that is already a proven model to fix their All-Star, to fix their All-Star game.
This is definitely a next week conversation.
There's two ways to go, and then both proven models.
Well, it kind of works out because you'll be running next week anyway. So,
oh, goody!
We'll spend 5 minutes on the Super Bowl and then 55 minutes on some NBA.
Well, if it's next Friday, Super Bowl won't be. Yeah, we could just give our picks and then go to the gut stuff.
Sounds like a plan. Well, with that being said, fellas, where can folks find you?
You can find me on Twitter, Instagram, Snapchat. Even though I don't use Snapchat hardly anymore, but Instagram and Twitter, J.E. Ross #7.
You can find me on Blue Sky. That's where I'm at right now. Yeah. Blue Sky, Instagram, I am Al Quarles. Blue Sky, Instagram, I am Al Quarles.
Yeah, and you can find me on Blue Sky, Cat Daddy 1963. That's Cat Daddy 1963 on Blue Sky. And yeah, that's where you can find me. I'm other places, but I don't want y'all to find me there. So, fellas, it's always a pleasure. Can't wait till next week's episode because I think brother E is going to sit there and school us on where we might need to kind of add Stephen A and some other folks to say, hey, you might want to take a listen to what we got to say, even though they probably won't. But it don't hurt.
I'm gonna do my Chris Canty. I ain't gonna do Stephen A because Chris Canty speaks knowledgeable stuff. Stephen A speaks.
Please don't get me started on him because
Which one? Canty or Stephen A? Yeah,
I've lost all.
Yeah,
okay,
I'm with you.
And
I'm with you.
I don't watch much First Take anymore, so I might have to get put up to speed on what you guys' thought process is in the chat. So
I only watch Molly. That's it.
oh my.
Anyway,
Well, fellas, thank you. I love to say thank you to everyone who tuned in. We appreciate you sticking by us, throughout the years. But also, I want to send heartfelt condolences to those who lost their lives on this. I believe it was the American airline flight landing in at Reagan Thursday, and then also just earlier this evening, where another plane crash happened in Philly. Prayers to those
Yes.
who lost their life in that plane crash and those who were affected
yes.
on the actual accident on the ground. Prayers and thoughts go out to everyone in that situation as well. So, with that being said, everybody, thank you once again, and make sure you tune in to next week's episode of the Guys Talking Sports.